In 1936, Tolkien shook Oxford awake with one wild idea. Monsters aren't background. They're the blazing core of every myth worth telling. That's why his monsters, Ungoliant, Shelob, the Balrog, are so much more than foes to be defeated. They're furious, they're potent, they terrify us because Tolkien understood. The deeper the monster, the deeper the story. Tonight, we're tracing that idea from the halls of Oxford to the darkest tunnel in Middle-earth, to see how Tolkien transformed pure craving into evil that can't be killed. Because once you see the appetite at the heart of these stories, you'll never look at Tolkien's monsters the same way again. 9 decades ago, in a chilly Oxford lecture hall, a professor began to speak. His talk, Beowulf, the Monsters and the Critics, didn't make headlines overnight, but something in that room quietly shifted. The idea took hold. Most of Tolkien's peers treated monsters as accidents, odd leftovers from pagan days, best explained away or ignored. The real business of myth, they thought, was genealogy, politics, history. But Tolkien saw what everyone else missed. Monsters are not mistakes. They are the living, beating core of the story. He told that gathering, "It is just because the main foes are inhuman that Beowulf is so valuable. Monsters," he said, "aren't background. They are the test. Remove Grendel or the dragon, and you have only a king's obituary. With monsters at the center, the story becomes about what it means to fight, about courage that endures, even knowing it cannot win." The room didn't gasp, but the air changed. Imagine myth with all its edges smoothed away, danger kept safely outside. Now picture what's lost when the monsters are pushed out. Tolkien wanted us to feel that loss. He wasn't just talking about old poems. He was issuing a challenge for every story to come. Monsters aren't distractions. They're the storm at the center. Not just obstacles, but the pulse and purpose of the tale itself. Without the monster, the myth unravels. With the monster, the story gains urgency, sorrow, and the possibility of greatness. In our last journey, we walked through fire and shadow with the Balrog, the very flame that still echoes in every dark. But the monster Tolkien was about to create would make even the Balrog seem merciful. He wasn't just rethinking myth, he dared storytellers to put monsters back at its core. And when he did, he unleashed a void even the gods couldn't satisfy. Ungoliant comes first, a shadow from ages long before, insatiable and never satisfied. No one really knew where she came from. Some said she crawled out of the darkness that surrounds the world, back when Melkor, later called Morgoth, first looked down with envy on the land of the Valar. Ungoliant wasn't evil in the way others were. She didn't want power or to rule. She wanted only to feed her emptiness, to consume every shimmer she could find until nothing was left but shadow. She didn't care for rings or towers, only for destroying, only for feeding her endless void. When Morgoth asked for her help, he said, "Do as I bid, and if thou hunger still when all is done, then I will give thee whatsoever thy lust may demand, yea, with both hands." But what can you possibly give to a craving that always wants more? Together they snuck into Valinor, where the two trees glowed with all the radiance of the world. Morgoth stabbed the trees with his black spear. Their sap ran out, as it were their blood, and Ungoliant drank it up, going from tree to tree until they were dry. Still unsated, she drained the wells of Varda. The darkness that fell was not just night, but a strange unlight, an absence that felt heavy, that could choke hope and even weaken the heart. Even Morgoth, with all his hatred, was afraid of what Ungoliant had become. But her longing just kept growing. She wanted the Silmarils, the last pure gleam in the world. Morgoth refused, and Ungoliant trapped him in her webs, demanding even more. Only when the Balrogs came with their whips of fire was Morgoth rescued. After that, no one knows for sure what happened to Ungoliant. Some say she drifted into the shadows and was lost. Others claim her emptiness grew so fierce that she finally devoured herself. Tolkien leaves it as a mystery. But one thing is certain: Ungoliant's absence didn't vanish when she did. It left a wound on the world, a yearning echoing on long after her shadow faded. Her craving didn't die, it drifted through ages, hiding in dark corners, waiting for a new shape. And in time, that void found one, her last and greatest child, still lurking in the shadows of Middle-earth. Ungoliant's darkness lingered, multiplying in secret places, until, at last, it took a new form in Middle-earth. If you think monsters are just background noise, this spawn of Ungoliant is about to prove otherwise. In Tolkien's world, the monster is never just an obstacle. She is the test, the turning point, the reason the story has weight at all. This is what Tolkien meant. The monster is the pulse at the center. Without her, the journey is just a list of travels and dangers. With her, it becomes a story worth telling, a tale where courage matters and hope is never guaranteed. Among all the world's shadows, one grew larger, older, and more dreadful than the rest. Her name was Shelob. Shelob is not a legend or fading memory. She is real, the last child of Ungoliant to trouble the unhappy world. Her kingdom is no vast wilderness, but a single, nameless tunnel carved into the mountains on the edge of Mordor, Cirith Ungol. Here, Shelob waits, the living emblem of want, spinning webs and ruling her passage with perfect patience. Even Sauron calls her his cat, but as Tolkien writes, she owns him not. She isn't a servant or a mother. Shelob is need, pure and patient. Shelob is her own appetite. She even devoured her own young long ago. Unlike Sauron, who commands, Shelob waits. She feeds one victim at a time, her power not in armies, but in the certainty of her need, a desire that has never once been sated. So now, as Frodo and Sam approach her tunnel, the question pulses in the gloom. Shelob is waiting in the dark, and what happens here will decide more than the fate of two hobbits. It will reveal whether hope itself can survive the oldest emptiness in Middle-earth. Here, Tolkien's monster is no longer theory. It's real, and it has 8 eyes watching in the dark. Frodo is stung and paralyzed, dropped deep in Shelob's lair. Sam stands alone, clutching the phial of Galadriel, a simple glass vial that holds the light of a star, Eärendil, shining with the last pure glow of the ancient 2 trees. Galadriel gave him this radiance as a gift for the darkest times, a hope when all other lights go out. Now, in Shelob's black lair, it is the final barrier between hope and need. Shelob advances, not with malice, but as want made flesh. This is evil you can't reason with, only resist. Sam raises the phial. Its light blazes, set amid the waters of Eärendil's star. For the first time, terror fills Shelob's many eyes. Sam strikes, not to win, but to protect. The light doesn't destroy Shelob, but reveals her limits. Even the oldest emptiness can bleed. Shelob retreats, wounded but undiminished. Some cravings are too old to die, but some gifts are too bright to swallow. For a single heartbeat, the darkness recoils, and hope endures, not by defeating evil, but by refusing to be consumed. The tunnel falls silent, but the memory of radiance lingers. For one impossible moment, emptiness itself recoiled. Shelob isn't destroyed. She waits in her deeper dark, but she's wounded. Even the oldest appetite has limits. This is Tolkien's brilliance. Monsters are not distractions, but the questions every myth must answer. His Beowulf lecture didn't just belong in the classroom. It shaped every monster he ever created. Ungoliant and Shelob aren't just nightmares. They reveal the danger of letting want define us. Their darkness starts as longing, but grows until it takes over everything. Sometimes, the thing we keep feeding, hoping it will fill the emptiness, ends up devouring us instead. But Tolkien never left us with despair. His answer isn't easy victory, but hope offered freely, given with no promise it will last. A gift that wounds the void, even if it only flickers for a moment. That's why these stories endure. The yearning haunting Middle-earth is never just fantasy. It lives in us. The desires that are never satisfied, the needs that hide as friends before showing their true face. To offer your light is to risk everything, never knowing if it's enough. But sometimes, one act of courage, one gift freely given, holds the darkness back for another day. So, what craving have you been feeding, hoping it will finally leave you whole? And what gleam, even now, might be waiting for you to spend, before the darkness remembers how to swallow it again? If you've stayed with us this far, know this: the greatest stories don't just warn us, they invite us to carry the flame forward. Sam carries Frodo up the stairs, the phial of Galadriel in his hand, its radiance striking the eyes of Shelob behind them. The light doesn't need drama or spectacle. It simply does what light does. It reveals, it guides, it endures. From the silver leaves of the two trees, to Arundel's star, to Galadriel's phial, to Sam's determined courage. The glow keeps moving forward, hand to hand, never lessened by the giving. This is the heart of Tolkien's vision. Monsters aren't just background noise. They're the engine of myth. They bring the danger, the weight, and the meaning. Without them, there's no need for courage, no glory in hope. Tolkien's monsters show us the cost of craving, but his heroes show us that courage is most beautiful when the odds are long and the outcome uncertain. In his world, evil always takes, but good always gives. And somehow, the offering is never exhausted. Shelob retreats, not because she's destroyed, but because she's reminded. Some things are simply too bright to swallow, and sometimes that's enough. Tolkien's monsters aren't finished yet. Ungoliant devoured light. Shelob consumed life. Next, meet the dragon who feeds on truth itself. Up next, Smaug and dragon sickness. Why do dragons sleep on our dreams? In Tolkien's world, dragons don't just threaten bodies. They corrupt memory, meaning, hope. If longing wounds the flesh, what about appetites that hollow out the soul? Stay with us. The next chapter goes deeper into the dark. That Oxford professor in 1936 didn't just study monsters, he unleashed them. By putting monsters at the center, he gave us a blueprint for courage against impossible odds. Tolkien's monsters show us the appetites we face. His heroes show us courage shines brightest when hope is almost gone. So if you ever find yourself lost in the dark, remember Sam in that tunnel. Sometimes, the glow you carry is exactly what the darkness can't endure. Thank you for watching. Keep your light burning.